Mike Sielski from Philadelphia Inquirer, Philly.com, and he joins us now here on 97.3 ESPN as we take a look at some of the Chip Kelly philosophies moving forward. Mike, welcome back, and congratulations as well on your award.
Thanks very much, Mike. I appreciate that.
No problem, man. And, I saw your piece the other night. I guess you actually were talking in the video, the way the world has changed, where we can just watch you in video now. You don't even have to write it anymore. They just film you. And I thought
I got to do both, so it's actually extra work.
You and me both, man. They're asking us to do all this stuff. I'm sure you didn't get any more money for that either, right?
No comment. No comment.
But anyway, you brought up a very interesting story that dates back to Chip's college days as to why we shouldn't be surprised at the way that he has handled guys like Jackson and McCoy here.
Yeah, well, if you look back at when Chip coached at Oregon, he had a quarterback named Darren Thomas, who in 2010 was the starting quarterback for the Oregon team that played for the national championship and lost to Auburn, and then the following season was the starting quarterback for an Oregon team that won the Rose Bowl. And then the following season, the season after that, which would have been his senior year, he was no longer the starting quarterback at Oregon. He left, entered the NFL draft, and went undrafted. And part of the reason that he left was because he could see the Marcus Mariota train coming down the tracks. Kelly had recruited Mariota. Mariota had been there already for a year as a redshirt freshman. And Thomas had a good idea that Mariota was going to be the starter for the Ducks, even though Thomas was a senior and had been the starter the 2 previous years. So when you think of an anecdote like that and then look at the Eagles' decision to trade a player like Shawn McCoy or to cut Deshaun Jackson or to trade Nick Foles, a year after he goes 27 touchdowns, 2 picks, and leads you to a division championship, it gives you some insight into why Chip Kelly does what he does and what he's thinking, which is that he's looking at what's happening down the road. And if I think that there's someone better available to me at this particular position, be it quarterback, running back, wide receiver, whatever, I'm going to go get that player and I'm going to play him regardless of the recent history of the player he might be replacing.
It's an interesting take on it, Mike, and obviously McCoy said the other day that he doesn't respect the stars. Do you believe that he doesn't respect them or connect with them, or that he's always looking for the next star?
I think it's when we use the word star, I think it's more a matter of the way the player views himself. And that's not to say that Shawn McCoy was a bad team player or that Deshaun Jackson necessarily was a bad team player. I think it's more a matter of completely and totally buying into what Chip is doing and the way he's doing it, and being completely comfortable with the idea that within this system, you may get the ball a bunch of times one week and not get it the next week, or you may get it 7 or 8 times in a row in the third quarter and not touch it all in the fourth. And Chip wants and needs players who will accept that and roll with it, and who believe that that'll be the best thing for the team. And so in that regard, I think that's what we're getting at here, and I think that played a role, and I think that's what Shawn is getting at, and I think that played a role in why Chip decided to move some of these guys. Yeah, it's cost. Yeah, it's not buying into the culture, but it's also this matter of he kind of wants guys who completely fit into his scheme and his system, and he doesn't want to have to deal with somebody saying, come on, coach, give me the ball more. Throw me the ball more. Those sorts of things.
Is that irregard to talent? I mean, does he feel – I mean, a lot of people thought Andy Reid could just, was so arrogant that he could put Pinkston and Thrash in an offense, and it didn't matter that there was more talented options, that he could get them open because of the system. Is that a similar situation with maybe a decision like Maclin?
I think it's similar. I mean, I think Chip looks at it as being more similar to what the Patriots do, though, which is to say that there are certain positions that you splurge on over a long period of time from a salary cap standpoint, and certain positions that you don't. And I don't think Chip regards wide receiver as a position where you spend a lot of money over a long period of time. And that's certainly what Jeremy Maclin wanted the Eagles and everybody else to do, and that's what the Kansas City Chiefs did to sign him. So, believe me, there's been no indication that the Eagles didn't want Jeremy Maclin back. They were outbid for him. They had a threshold that they weren't willing to go over, and it doesn't mean they didn't want him. It just means that they have a philosophy about how much you ought to pay a particular player at a particular position for a particular period of time.
Mike Sielski is with us, the Philadelphia Inquirer columnist, as the Eagles' offseason has been a wild one, and we're hearing other crazy things. Do you think that Kelly still has another big move in his sleeve? And you know, obviously this is a lot of people's opinion, but do you get the sense that he is the kind of guy that if there's something he wants, that he will figure out a way to get it?
Yeah, I do. As to whether he's got another big move up his sleeve, I think, and I've said this, I think, to you before, I think he's similar to Sixers GM Sam Hinkie in that they both want flexibility. They both want to be in a position, I think, where they can make a big move if one presents itself. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, Chip Kelly is definitely going to make another big trade or signing before the draft, or that he's going to do something radical to move up and get Marcus Mariota or some other player at the draft. But I don't think he's completely closed the door on those ideas either. And I think if such an opportunity were to somehow present itself, you know, a player on another team suffers a freak injury and it changes the market or something like that, then he, you know, it might allow him to make a kind of move that he would otherwise might not make.
Mike, your latest sports column at Philly.com talks about Kelly focusing on the run, and that's something that he really did at college. Do you think that the first 2 years here that was not really who he wanted to be, and that we'll see more of who Chip Kelly wants to be this season coming up?
I think so, yeah, because he's now got what appears to be total control to bring in the kind of guys he wants. And, you know, he also he has total control to a point, only because the Eagles really don't have what anybody would consider at this point to be a franchise quarterback. And, you know, all indications are that Kelly, you know, puts a lot of stock in the quarterback, just like every other NFL coach does. But if he doesn't have that guy, then history suggests he's going to try to be creative with the running game. And that's why I wrote what I wrote today. You know, if you look at the decision to trade Shawn McCoy and then to bring in DeMarco Murray and Ryan Matthews and still have Darren Sproles and insist that Darren Sproles is going to have a fairly significant role in the run game, then what you're looking at, it seems to me, is a system similar to what he ran in Oregon, where he had multiple running backs, even a quarterback who could run, and the vast majority of the dynamism, the big play nature of his offense came out of the run game. And what big plays came out of the passing game came out of play-action passing. So, you know, if you look at the Eagles roster, the way it shapes up now, you've got Murray, you've got Matthews, you've got Sproles. You can make an argument that the three most dynamic players on their offense are all running backs. So what are you going to do if you're Chip Kelly, where you're going to try to design a system that takes advantage of those players' strengths? And it's not like he hasn't done this before. I mean, since he's been with the Eagles. I mean, if you look at that opening game against the Redskins, you know, in 2013, you look at the Snow Bowl against the Lions in 2013 when the Eagles came back from a big early deficit by running the ball and got big plays running the ball. It's not like this is something that he's unfamiliar with.
Yeah, and in the article that you wrote, Mike, you talked to a guy who had coached against him, and I guess it's the opinion of many that Chip wants to run the ball as many times as possible, and even if you know he's running it, he can design plays to the point where even if you know it's coming, Chip thinks that he can out-design you, and I guess he felt like in the past he didn't have the right personnel to do that.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I do think he, you know, to a certain extent, he tried to make a go of what they had when he got there, and they had quite a bit. I mean, Michael Vick, Shawn McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, you know, Brent Selleck. These are talented players, and the Eagles have had a potent offense the first 2 years that Chip Kelly has been their head coach. But now he's got a chance to kind of shape it the way he wants to shape it in a way he hasn't had before. So he's missing, I think, that quarterback. I mean, I think that they hold out the hope that if Sam Bradford can be healthy and remain healthy, that he'll bring something better to the position than Nick Foles would have, certainly. Otherwise, they wouldn't have traded Foles for Bradford. And they hope that Bradford is a stronger, more accurate arm, makes faster decisions, all those things. But, you know, the other upshot of building your offense around the running game and building your big playability out of the running game is that it'll protect Bradford. You know, you don't have to have him. If it's going well, you don't have to have him drop back 40 times a game. You can have him drop back 25 times a game, and it decreases the chances that he gets hurt again.
Hey,
so,
Mike, yeah.
I mean, look, we're all kind of spitballing here, Mike, to one degree or another, and I'm just trying to look at the hand that's in front of me and try to read what Chip's done in the past and what he might do next season and into the future.
Hey, I still believe that the night that Michael Vick played quarterback on Monday Night Football against the Redskins was the best we've seen this offense run. I know Nick threw 7 touchdowns in one game, but on that night, the decisions of him running the ball and when to give it off, I thought that was the best the offense has ever looked and has not come close to matching that since then, whether or not that's the quarterback or whatever. That night on Monday night, the first game of the year, I still don't recall a game in which they looked so crisp and so effective running the ball, other than maybe the second half of that Snow Bowl game.
Yeah, well, I think he's, again, you're in a position there where nobody knows exactly what Chip's going to do. It's his first game in the NFL. He's going up against a team in the Redskins that, was not a good team that year and was having its own set of problems. So they were kind of ripe for the picking in that regard. But you're right. And one of the things that Jeff Castile, the University of Arizona defensive coordinator I spoke to yesterday, mentioned, and other people have mentioned it too, is that Chip makes you defend the entire field, sideline to sideline, line of scrimmage to the end zone. And that's the idea of what he wants to do. He wants to spread you out and find soft targets. This is not, hand the ball to Marshawn Lynch and let the guys up front block and let Marshawn run over the first guy who has him lined up. This is not what Chip Kelly wants to do. He wants to spread you out, spread you thin, and then beat you on the outside in one-on-one matchups. So, we'll see. I mean, they still have the draft yet to go. I mean, if they may pick a wide receiver who turns out to be capable of being their number one receiver. I don't know what's going to happen there, but we're all trying to kind of grasp at what this is going to look like come September, and this is kind of a snapshot of it right now, I think.
All right, let's take a look at some Philly stuff with Mike here. Obviously, a lot of people talking about Jonathan Papelbon. Some are just outraged. Other people say, look, I want my guys to speak his mind. What is your take on Papelbon last night?
My take is this is Jonathan Papelbon. This is who he is. This is who he's always been. To me, what this gets down to, that this is even a discussion really, is kind of a reflection of, and I actually spoke about this in a video commentary on Philly.com today, about how this is kind of a reflection of the insecurity of the average Philadelphia sports fan. I mean, look, this is what Jonathan Papelbon does. If there's one guy who Philadelphia sports fans should not be outraged by, it's Jonathan Papelbon. I mean, he says dumb things. He says things to get a reaction. He did it again here. And the idea that fans should be outraged about this just kind of speaks to how much they want to be loved by their athletes, even guys who, treat them badly and really aren't worth their time. I mean, it's kind of like Sally Field at the Oscars. You like me. You really like me. I mean, that's kind of how Philadelphia fans are, it seems to me. They constantly want to be loved. And Jonathan Papelbon's not going to love you. He's just not. So don't bother worrying about it. Don't bother thinking about it or talking about it. Don't pay any attention to him. He's probably going to be traded before the end of the season anyway, and you won't have to worry about it anymore.
That's what they hope anyway. And the problem is his mouth and his contract can't get him moved. It's almost like he reaped what he sowed, though, because he said straight cash, meaning the reason I'm not in Boston is because they couldn't afford me, so that's why I'm here. So I didn't really want to be here. It's just that they couldn't afford me. Is that kind of the way it sounds?
I guess. I mean, look, he's going to pitch for whoever's going to pay him, and that's fine. And he spent 7 years with the Red Sox, so if he feels like his heart is still in Boston, that's natural to a certain extent. But again, it would be one thing if a guy like Chase Utley or even Jimmy Rollins to a certain extent, who's had his own roundabouts with fans and things that he said. If somebody like that said, hey, I don't like it in Philadelphia and the fans stink and I don't want to be here, that'd be one thing. But this is Jonathan Papelbon. He's going to say things to get a rise out of people. He's going to do things to get a rise out of people. I mean, do we really have to bring up last year's crotch grab, on the field? So this is who he is. Don't, let it slide off your back. I don't see that very often from Philadelphia sports fans, where they just kind of say, you know what, the guy's an idiot. I'm not going to worry about it. We're a tough sports town. We're a proud sports town. That's the way we are. If people can't handle it, so be it. Instead, they kind of, whoa, why does he have to say that? And the fans, it's outrageous, blah, blah, blah. Just, it's I'm tired of it, I guess.
Well, yeah, and it's almost like, Aaron Rowan runs into the wall and breaks his nose, and he hits 260. We're okay with that. Jonathan Papelbon is, having – in the time that he's been here, he's been very good. and yet we still don't embrace him. And I guess he said, I've never really felt embraced here. And, I guess he has a point to some extent. But the success of the team, I guess, goes into play sometimes in how we view some of these guys. When things are bad, even though he's good, he's not relatable.
That's true. So why? And that's what I don't understand. Like, if you want to be outraged by something where Jonathan Papelbon is concerned, be outraged, and I'm sure a lot of fans are, but be outraged over the fact that Ruben Amaro Jr. thought that spending 4 years and $50 million on the closer when the Phillies were poised for a downturn that everybody knew was coming and needed to spend that money on something, basically anything other than a closer. Like, be outraged at that. Don't be outraged that a professional athlete is kind of a jerk, because a lot of them are jerks. What you should be outraged at is that, the Phillies spent that money to sign him at all because it was a ridiculous signing at the time. A lot of people said it. A lot of people knew it, and they tried to defend it. And so you've got a commodity that you can't move, and that doesn't really help you very much.
Mike Sielski, the columnist at the Philadelphia Inquirer and Philly.com, and great piece on Chip Kelly moving forward. And obviously, we're all very intrigued to see how this all works out. And we're all intrigued still to see if Sam Bradford will be the guy, the trigger man of all of this. And we got to wait till the 30th of the draft to see if that happens. Mike, appreciate the time as always, man.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care. Mike Sielski, the sports columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer and Philly.com. And, of course, you can hear him right here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN with his take on all the things that are happening around Philly sports with the columnist stuff there.